Welcome back. Today, we are unpacking a deeply moving story called The Teacher's Debt. And you know what? We're going to skip the usual long introductions today because we need to jump right into the absolute emotional peak of this narrative. Seriously, picture this scene with me.
Okay, let's dive right in. Imagine a grand, state-of-the-art hospital. It's actually the largest in the entire city, and it's opening its doors for the very first time. The air is just buzzing with excitement. Cameras are flashing everywhere, and standing right there on the main stage is this highly successful, incredibly respected man, Dr. Omar. The crowd is totally geared up for a standard, predictable speech, right? You know, the usual stuff about hard work and the future of healthcare. But instead, he drops a mysterious confession that literally stops the entire room in its tracks.
He steps right up to the microphone, looks out at this massive crowd of dignitaries and colleagues, and says something stunning. He says, "Whatever I am today is because of a peon who never told me his name." Just let that sink in for a second. The most celebrated doctor in the city, at the absolute pinnacle of his career, is attributing his entire life's success to a nameless entry-level school worker. It's wild. So naturally, this begs a massive question. Who in the world was this anonymous benefactor? To understand this mystery and to really uncover the origins of this incredible, life-changing relationship, we need to rewind the clock. We have to flash back many years before this hospital was even a blueprint, back to a modest, underfunded school where this whole thing actually begins. All right, so to find our answer, we go back to that school. Enter Bilal. He was the poor school peon, basically the caretaker handling the daily, often overlooked chores of the building. He lived a life totally away from the spotlight, completely far removed from grand hospital inaugurations or any kind of public applause. And Bilal's reality? It was harsh. He came from a very poor family and lived a genuinely hard life, struggling every single day to make ends meet on a really meager salary. But, and here's the kicker, despite his physical poverty, he had an immensely big heart. That stark contrast between his difficult physical reality and his immense emotional wealth, that is the absolute foundation of this entire story. Now, as we know, every story has two sides. While Bilal was working at this school, a new student entered his world. And this kid was carrying a heavy, profound loneliness every single time he walked through those school gates. Now, what's really interesting about this new student, Umar, is his heartbreaking background. He was an orphan, living with relatives who made it painfully clear that he was just a burden to them. He'd show up to school in torn clothes and broken shoes, which was this constant visual marker of his neglect. But honestly, the most painful part of his days was that he was completely ignored by everyone. He was practically a ghost in a crowded schoolyard, just suffering in complete silence. But he wasn't invisible to everyone. Bilal noticed him. And Bilal didn't just feel some fleeting pity. He took actual, quiet, deliberate action. First, he truly saw Omar's state, refusing to look away like everyone else did. Then, despite his own daily hardships, Bilal saved what little money he could from his tiny salary. And finally, he secretly left a new bag and books right on Omar's desk. No fanfare, no audience, just pure, unfiltered kindness. Imagine little Umar walking into the classroom, probably expecting another miserable day, and suddenly seeing brand new supplies sitting on his previously empty desk. His immediate reaction was just sheer shock. "Who gave this?" he asked out loud. This is the exact moment this boy realized that in a world that treated him like a burden, someone actually cared. And the most beautiful part of this whole interaction, Bilal, who was probably just sweeping the hallway right outside the door, chose to remain completely silent. Let's move forward and see how this builds, because this wasn't just a one-time act of charity to make Bilal feel good about himself for a day. Oh no, this silent support became a steadfast pattern over a really extended period of time. We're not talking about a single good deed here. We're talking about years of anonymous help. So it started on day one with a new bag. But over the coming months, when school fees were due and Umar was literally at risk of dropping out, those fees were mysteriously paid. Over the years, the support evolved from financial help into quiet words of encouragement when Umar was struggling. This invisible hand guided him all the way until, 20 years later, he finally achieved his dream and became a doctor. And that brings our narrative full circle. We can trace the path from those quiet, lonely school days right back to that emotional crescendo at the hospital inauguration, revealing the ultimate result, a genuine legacy of silent kindness. 20. 2 full decades. 20 long years had passed between that lonely orphan boy receiving a backpack and Dr. Umar standing on the stage of the city's largest hospital giving his inaugural speech. 20 years of a secret kept completely safe by a man who had every right in the world to boast, but chose a much higher path. And as Dr. Umar spoke those shocking words, "Whatever I am today is because of a peon who never told me his name," guess who was there? Far away from the microphones, lost in the noisy, crowded hospital audience, stood old Bilal. He was in the very back of the crowd, tears welling up in his aging eyes, just smiling silently. The contrast is absolutely breathtaking. You have the loud, celebrated doctor in the front, and the quiet, tearful joy of the true hero just fading into the background. So the crucial point is this. The entire story boils down to one profound lesson. Silent kindness is the greatest legacy. True charity, the kind that actually reshapes lives and changes the world, does not seek the spotlight. It doesn't need a fancy plaque, it doesn't need a round of applause, and it doesn't even need its name to be known. As we wrap up our exploration of this story today, I want to leave you with a final provocative question, one that connects this amazing narrative directly to your own life. You know, it's incredibly easy to do good when people are watching and clapping, but do we have the courage to do a good deed and keep it entirely silent? Can we be like Bilal, building a legacy of kindness that no one will ever attach our name to? Take a moment to reflect on that today and think about the silent legacy you are building right now.